Hello, welcome to Helena Coffee. How does coffee processing affect the taste of coffee? You may have wondered what the symbols that describe the processing of coffee beans like natural, washed or honey represent when you look at a packet of coffee. What do they mean inside this coffee box, and how important are they? Today we will learn about them in this video. What is coffee processing, and how does it work? The processing stage is between harvesting the coffee cherries and storing the finished product, the beans. Aside from the quality of the coffee fruit, processing has a significant impact on the flavor of the coffee beans. Essentially, there are two steps to processing coffee beans: removing the layers of the coffee cherries and drying the beans. The order in which the above activities occur is the fundamental variation in processing coffee beans. A slew of innovative processing methods is emerging these days, many of which introduce unique flavors to coffee beans. Natural processing method, also known as natural dry processing method, wet processing method, washed, and processing method are the three most prevalent coffee processing methods. Honey. Coffee beans have varying flavors depending on how they are processed. First, we must understand that all processing processes are founded on the same standard. Coffee cherries must be gathered and selected carefully from the tree. That is, only pick ripe fruits and avoid unripe or overripe ones. The freshly picked coffee cherries will then be placed in a water tank to remove dirt and floating pods, which are broken, textured berries that are no longer intact. Whole. Any high-quality coffee processing procedure begins with these two crucial and basic stages. Why is it so important? The solution can be found directly below. Let's look at the technical aspects of the different processing processes and watch how the coffee cherries evolve with each one. Natural processing.
The coffee cherries will be dried in the sun after being cleaned on the surface of the pods. During the drying process, the whole cherries will be maintained intact, catalyzing the beans' fermentation. As we all know, coffee is a nut with a lot of sugar and, in particular, the most acid groups of any fruit. Apart from sugars, acids and phenols are components that contribute to each fruit's distinctive flavor and taste. These chemicals are mostly found in the fruit's flesh. When drying, natural pre-processed coffee is maintained intact. In a nutshell, the natural processing method involves drying the entire coffee bean before removing the skins, pulp, and mucus to obtain the final bean. Washed processing. In contrast to the natural processing approach, the wet processing method eliminates all of the skins, pulp, and mucus before drying. Just the coffee cherry seeds are dried. No additional fermentation takes place at this time. Before drying, wet processed coffee, wash, is rinsed, and the skin, flesh, and mucus are totally removed. Between natural processing and wet processing, the processes are performed in reverse order. Drying first, then discarding, is a natural processing method. Wet processing entails removing the item first and then drying it. The wet processing method gets its name from the fact that water is used to remove and clean all layers of the coffee cherries, leaving only the seeds to dry.
Honey processing. This procedure merely removes the fruit's skin and flesh, leaving a portion of the mucus layer to be dried alongside the seeds. Depending on the processor's purpose, it is possible to keep all or portions of this mucus layer. The mucilage layer will be kept and fermented alongside the coffee beans. The beans will collect moisture from the mucus layer and become sticky during this period. The sticky sensation is similar to honey, so the procedure is called honey. Control is the key to the honey processing method. During the drying process, the parameters of coffee beans are rigorously monitored, including fermentation, sugar concentration in the mucilage layer, bean moisture level, and so on. As a result, the honey processing method extracts a portion of it and then allows it to dry. Now that we've covered the technical aspects of the processing methods, we can move on to the key question. How does every processing method affect good coffee? Naturally processed coffee beans have a complex and distinctive flavor. For example, fruit and floral flavors will appear intense and complex. Wet processed coffee beans can lack the rich flavor and complexity of natural processing. However, wet processed coffee is very light and easy to drink because of its simplicity and consistency. As a result, many people choose to drink wet processed coffee on a daily basis. The honey processing method requires a high degree of control over the characteristics of the coffee beans throughout the process. The controlled fermentation produces coffee beans that have a richer flavor than wet processing but a more balanced flavor than natural processing.